I have to say this now. Please forgive me. You're a painter. I think you're a great artist. I love it. I remember it. And I will always love you. Thanks. There are a lot of beautiful love stories in Hollywood, but there is one that is both sweet and scary. A pair that was together for more than 20 years, but never really broke up. It's about Diane Keaton and Al Pacino's love story. Two movie stars who will always be linked to The Godfather, and two souls who will never be able to meet in person. Diane Keaton was in love with Al Pacino and asked him to marry her. She was strong-willed, independent, funny. Pacino, the man with dreamy eyes and a heart that could change at any time, decided to walk away without calling out. They used to live together, make secret promises, and cry tears of love for each other. But in the end, they all picked a different road. There was no wedding and no ending. There was only a strange bond that lasts to this day. If you've ever looked up to Diane Keaton as a symbol of intelligence and independence, or been mesmerized by Al Pacino's defiant gaze, leave a message below and help us find out about the love that was never named and the breakup that was never really over. Just how badly did Diane Keaton get hurt? For what did Al Pacino, the man who said, "I love you forever," not do to hold on to her? Before we can understand why Diane Keaton and Al Pacino's story never had a full finish, we need to go back in time. To the years they spent as kids and the artistic paths that quietly changed how they loved and let go. Diane Keaton was born in Los Angeles into a strict Catholic home. Frank was a civil engineer, and Dorothy, her mother, was the winner of a beauty pageant in her neighborhood. But she gave up her dream of being on stage to be a full-time mom. Diane swore she would never live a life like the one she saw as a child, a beautiful woman locked up in a kitchen. Diane decided to be a free woman from a very young age. She was different, brave, and so sure of herself that many men found her scary. But Diane was also weak, because her mother had put a hurtful shadow over her. She wanted a complete love. Love that stays, not love that goes away. A place to live, a partner, and a sense of stability in a world where art is unpredictable. Also, that's what she saw or thought she saw in Al Pacino's eyes. Al Pacino, on the other hand, told a very different story. His Italian-American family was poor, and he was born in East Harlem, New York. When he was 2 years old, his parents split up. He was raised by his mother, Rose, who worked part-time jobs in a small Bronx apartment. Pacino didn't have a typical family. Instead, he grew up in the noise of city streets, old movie theaters, and small theaters, which is where he first felt like he belonged. He fell in love with acting early on, and it was the only thing he was ever willing to commit to. To keep acting, he was kicked out of school, worked as a movie usher, delivered newspapers, and even slept in parks. Being in that world made him hard to get close to. He was kind, but not friendly, and deep, but far away. Most of all, he feared attachment because, to Pacino, it meant giving up freedom, and for him, freedom was the only thing that kept him alive. Two people, one wanting to hold on and the other eager to run. These two people met by chance on the set of The Godfather in 1971. They were both in love, but they were both lonely and couldn't love without hurting themselves. It wasn't just two young actors working on a masterpiece. It was two souls who had been away from the idea of saving for a long time. But sometimes fate gives people hope only to break them with it. I remember him saying that they wanted to fire Pacino because they didn't trust him and kept hating him. Diane Keaton and Al Pacino met for the first time on the set of The Godfather in 1971. Neither of them was a well-known actor at the time. Keaton was a well-known comedian who worked on her own, while Pacino was a newcomer who had just left Broadway. But when they looked at each other in the tense setting of an old-school mafia movie, something quiet started. A strong but fragile link that didn't involve words, as if fate had begun writing a different story for them outside of the camera's view. Diane Keaton has said many times that she fell in love with Pacino right from the start. "I was crazy about him," she said. "He was crazy hot, charming, and fun. He looked like a lost child or a genius, and I couldn't take my eyes off of him." Pacino, on the other hand, didn't say much. He never said in public that he liked Keaton at the time, but anyone who watches the behind-the-scenes videos or listens to their friends talk about it can feel it. They can feel it. There was an energy between them that couldn't be explained. It wasn't just physical attraction or professional harmony. It was like a gravitational pull that neither of them could explain. Their love began in silence and grew slowly as they watched The Godfather Part 2 and then Part 3. During the 1970s, they dated, broke up, and dated again as if neither could truly let go. It was during this time that Diane Keaton realized her feelings for Pacino weren't just a teenage crush. Because she was so interested in him, she was willing to wait over 20 years to hear an answer. But that answer may have never come, and Pacino knew it. He stayed the same, still deep, still attractive, still far away, and never committed. That, more than anything else, made it a never-ending chase. There were no public outbursts of love on the red carpet or official engagement announcements during Diane Keaton and Al Pacino's relationship. Instead, it went on for over 20 years, playing and ending in a way that was both quiet and chaotic, like a melody with no final note that plays and ends, only to start again. After working together on The Godfather, they started dating in secret. During their breaks, Keaton dated other people, living with Woody Allen, Warren Beatty, and even Mel Gibson. Pacino's name would always be in her heart. She once said, "All three of the Godfather movies were about the same thing, Al." That was all there was to it. In the meantime, Al Pacino kept doing what he did best, which was to avoid commitment. His relationships, including the one with Diane, every time they broke up and then got back together, they thought it would be the last time. People in the business often said that only Keaton had the patience to stay, the kindness to calm Pacino down when he was upset, the intelligence to not put pressure on him, and the love to wait for something she knew might never come. At that point, things changed when they were shooting The Godfather Part 3 in Rome in the late 1980s. They stayed in the same villa, and everyone there thought Pacino would finally ask Keaton to marry him after all those years. But things didn't work out that way. Today, things took a different turn. Diane gave him a choice. They could get married or break up. Al Pacino didn't pick her, and the story didn't end with a fight, but with a terrifying silence. Diane became depressed and went to therapy while she learned that her father had a brain tumor. Pacino quietly left and never looked back. When asked about that moment, she said, "I kept asking him things. I wanted more." The sad part was that he wanted to love me the way I loved him. Sometimes loving someone too much is enough to make them leave. If Diane Keaton and Al Pacino's relationship were a song, it would be a solo where one person plays over and over while the other quietly leaves the stage. This is because at the heart of the relationship, it was always Keaton who moved forward, hoped, and was ready, while Pacino stood still, touched and looked on as love passed him by. Diane once said that Pacino was a brilliant lost soul, a man who was smart, magnetic, full of contradictions, and never let anyone get too close. She also said that he was gorgeous, a genius fool, and had the most beautiful face I've ever seen. But those words couldn't hold a heart that wasn't ready to be bound. Not because he didn't love, but because he didn't believe in a happy ending that would make him stay. Diane later said, "I always picked the wrong guys. I needed as much as they needed me, and that's never a formula for a lasting relationship." She knew she wasn't stable enough or had the nurturing instinct to be a good life partner. But what she didn't realize was that it was her love that hurt the most. As for Pacino, he never got married. He had 4 kids with 3 different women, but he never put a ring on anyone's finger. Friends said he didn't want to lose his freedom and was afraid that marriage would ruin something beautiful. He may have also known he couldn't love someone enough to commit, or in a normal way. During their 20-year relationship, Diane Keaton never managed to keep the man she loved, and Pacino never managed to keep a woman's heart long enough to build something lasting. They both lost, but in different ways. And when love ended with a refusal, the person who stayed behind carried everything. Diane Keaton played strong, funny, and free women who were always a little lonely. Al Pacino played the same emptiness on big stages, and even though he's in his 80s, he still doesn't really belong to anyone. This love story between Diane Keaton and Al Pacino ended without a third party, without scandal, and without divorce papers. One stepped back because they were afraid of commitment, and the other finally chose to let go. But when the lights went down and the applause stopped, the real question lingered: who lived more fully after it all? Because of her breakup with Pacino, Diane Keaton never dated anyone in public again. She's been single for over 35 years and adopted 2 kids, a girl and a boy, when she was in her 50s. In an interview, she said, "No one ever asked me to marry them. Maybe they realized I'm not the easiest person to live with." But she also said, "I'm really glad I didn't get married." Married? I don't think it would have been right for me. Diane Keaton became one of Hollywood's most successful women, even though she didn't have a man by her side. She won an Oscar, a Golden Globe, and was honored by the American Film Institute, AFI. She became a symbol of mature beauty, sharp intelligence, and being yourself. She was hurt by love once, but she never lost her sense of humor or faith in herself. What about Al Pacino? Keaton asked him to marry her once. He has 4 kids from 3 different women, but he has never been married either. Beverly D'Angelo was the only one of those relationships that went longer than a few years. They had twins, Anton and Olivia. From Martha Keller to Lucilla Pock and most recently to Nora Alfella, the mother of his youngest son, who was born in 2023, they came and went like a string of unfinished movie scenes. When asked why he never got married, Pacino said in a quiet voice, "I avoid doors that might lead to pain." It was a simple but haunting line. Maybe he knew he couldn't make someone happy, so he chose to keep everything outside of their life. Keaton chose to be alone. Pacino chose non-attachment. But only one person has ever cried in a therapist's office over a love that never happened. And only one person has stood on stage in front of thousands of people and said, "I love you forever." If there is a winner, it might be the person who was able to hold on to themselves. However, the person who loved more was the one who hurt more. In the fast-paced and loud world of show business, it's not often that a relationship goes from love to heartbreak and then quietly changes into one based on deep respect and a lasting connection. But Diane Keaton and Al Pacino were able to do just that. They were no longer lovers, and they were also not truly friends. They were the only ones who saw a part of history that no one else could fully understand. And strangely, their friendship stayed strong, as if there had never been a real break between them. In 2017, Al Pacino spoke at the American Film Institute's Lifetime Achievement Awards ceremony honoring Diane Keaton. The last time they were together was almost 30 years ago, but in Pacino's eyes that night, it seemed like time had stopped. He talked about how Keaton made him laugh before interviews, memories from Rome, and behind-the-scenes bits that only the 2 of them knew. At the end of his speech, he paused for a moment to breathe, then told the whole room, "I love you forever." Diane Keaton smiled, but didn't break down in tears. It's possible that she was done crying. Their friendship isn't often talked about in the news. There are no pictures of them going to dinner together or walking the red carpet together, but in conversations, they still talk about each other in the nicest ways. She once said that Pacino had the most beautiful face she had ever seen. Pacino said that Keaton was a unique woman who was always alive and new. It's possible that friendship will be the only thing that keeps people together when love is no longer enough to keep them together. That's what they picked. Not to hurt each other again, not to go back, and not to lie about what happened. Diane Keaton and Al Pacino's relationship isn't just about a failed romance. It's also about a larger generational tragedy. When 2 people who are too unique, too independent, and too ambitious try to love each other in a world where there's no room for compromise. They are both artists whose work is influenced by their inner lives and early because Keaton grew up with an ambitious mother who never got her chance to shine. She has always felt the need to prove herself, both in art and in her personal life. She was afraid of being average and of being managed, but she also wanted to be deeply loved. Pacino, on the other hand, had no father when he was young, grew up poor in the Bronx, and walked the streets of New York looking for stage roles. To him, love was always something that could take away his freedom, a price that was too high for a comfort level that was foreign to him. In this relationship, Keaton wanted a home, while Pacino wanted to be apart. Keaton once said, "I loved Pacino not for who he was, but for what he represented, a lost soul that needed saving." Pacino loved Diane, but he never said he was willing to change. He never got to the point where love seemed worth giving up a part of himself. Art brought them together, but it was also art. their fixation on roles, careers, and creative freedom that kept them apart in the end. Each person chose to go further down their own path. Diane became a symbol of strong womanhood because she never needed a man to complete her. Pacino, on the other hand, became more distant and free to the point of loneliness, becoming a man who only belonged on the screen. And maybe that was what they had always known, that a great love doesn't always go hand in hand, goes hand in hand with a great job. That some people are born to love each other deeply, but were never meant to live together. Diane Keaton and Al Pacino, two living Hollywood icons, loved each other in a way that few people are brave enough to do, fully, with years of waiting, with private loneliness, and with hard decisions. But they never got married or had a happy ending. There was only the phrase, "I love you forever," that stuck with them. But was it really a deep love, or was it just a dream that only Pacino entered while Diane Keaton stood outside? If you love someone enough to propose and they say no, would you call that love or a mistake? And if they still talk about you with misty eyes 20 years later, was it all real, or was it just regret? They broke up. Al Pacino never loved anyone else, and Diane Keaton has never had to talk as much in interviews, even though she's been single for more than half her life. Some loves don't need names, and some endings don't need weddings. But some pains don't have names because they never really ended, or maybe never fully began. What do you think? Did Diane Keaton love the wrong man, or just the right one at the wrong time? And if you were in that story, would you be willing to wait one more time? Tell us in the comments below, because maybe love doesn't end when someone leaves, it starts when we have the courage to keep walking. Don't forget to subscribe to our station so you don't miss the next sad story.